Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to look at one of the newer features in JavaScript, which is the optional chaining syntax or operator. So this one is currently also in stage 4 of proposals, similar to the knowledge correlation operator, and this works currently in most recent browser versions of Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and other browsers. So I'll post the documentation in the description below and you can have a look at that for the browser versions. So the way this works is that you can see here, it says error-proof way of accessing nested object values without having to validate that each reference is valid. So to understand this, let's take a step back and run through the issues that were faced before this syntax or operator was introduced. So let's say here that we had a colors object with a bunch of colors and their hex values. So we have colors here and the hex values here. So let's try to console log one of these out, and we can do console.log colors.blue, and we'll get the hex value of that. And this works just fine because it's defined in the colors object right here. So now let's say we try to access one that wasn't in the colors object. So we can go yellow, which is not there, and we get an error of cannot read property hex of undefined. So this becomes an issue now when we try to access nested objects that aren't actually there or defined, which causes these errors to be thrown here. So let's look at the workaround that was here before this optional chaining was introduced. So before the optional chaining was introduced, the way around this error here was to use the AND operator in order so we can validate that all references exist before we try to access the property that we want. So in this example, we would not do this, but we would use the AND operator here, and we can do colors and we do colors dots yellow and the colors dot yellow dot hex, and return undefined, so there's no error anymore. So what's happening here is it's checking if all these references are there. Only then do we try to get the value that we want here. So it returns undefined here because colors is valid here, but colors.yellow is not valid, so it's undefined in this colors object. That's why it returns an undefined. So with this workaround, it now removes the error that we have and makes it more error-proof, like here you can say. But there are some flaws with this workaround. For example, it's really tedious to write out. You can see that it looks pretty long here already. And you can also just imagine what it would be like if we had an object that was nested even more than we have here. There would be a lot more AND operators that we'd have to write out. Like if we had a bunch more, that would be pretty tedious to write out. So with optional chaining, this comes in to make this a bit cleaner and help us solve this problem. So for example, in this one, we can just, instead of this, we can write, we can just remove all this. And let's say we have the color.yellow and .hex. So we can just do this right here. And this also gives us the undefined right here. So it helps us so we don't have to validate that each reference is valid like we do here. It makes it shorter and cleaner. So what happens here with the optional chaining, this question mark and the dot, is that the property before this, which is yellow in this case, it will check if this is null or undefined. And if it is, then it will return an undefined. If it isn't, only then can we try, will it try to access the property that we want, which is the hex right here. So in that sense, we don't have to validate that each reference is valid like we do up here with the AND operators. That's one thing that the optional chaining solves for us. So some important notes here are that this optional chaining works pretty well with the knowledge correlation operator. So if you don't know what that is, I have a video on that and I'll post that in the description below. So for example, let's say that we had a function to get a default color. And we can return, let's say we want to check for yellow first. So we can do colors.yellow, use the optional chaining, the hex, and we can also make a default if that's not there. So we can do Let's just say colors.green.hex. Now we can console this out. You get default color. And here you can see that we get the default color, which is green, because this returns an undefined rather than returning an error. So another important thing is that you can actually use this operator, use this syntax with multiple different things, not just object properties. So you can do it with the properties, arrays. You can do it with functions as well. So I'll post this with the documentation below, and you can have a further read of this. But just keep that in mind that it's just not limited to object properties. So one more thing that you can do is that you can chain multiple of these operators together. So let's imagine that we had another property in here that we wanted to check. We can also just do a question mark and a dot and just get the property that we're trying to get here. So these can be chained multiple times if you want to. So that's all for this video and optional chaining. I think this operator and syntax will be pretty popular when it comes as a standard, and it will be widely used by many people. So I hope you learned something new. If you like content like this, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next one.